our posture is just going to be getting closer and closer to the Israeli line, which is not in the U.S. interest. It's not what the experts at the State Department prefer. And by firing me, there's now a chilling effect where people who have those concerns and want to say something are less likely to do so. My name is Shahed Goreishi. I was the press officer in the Near Eastern Affairs Bureau at the Department of State. I started in September 2024, originally covering Lebanon, Jordan, but quickly by January of this year, I started covering Israeli and Palestinian affairs.
And now your employment has been terminated?
Correct. As of August 17th, they let me know that it was terminated. Between my experience within the building and the Washington Post's original coverage, it was clear to me that the events of the previous week led up to my termination, as spearheaded by senior officials at Embassy Jerusalem and through the Secretary Rubio's office. And I was terminated by the following Sunday.
So why?
So 3 events accumulated in this. The first incident was Sunday, where Anas, the journalist in Gaza, was killed in an Israeli strike along with his colleagues. I drafted a line calling for condolences for his family. And Monday, a similar event, a reporter asked about our reaction to reporting that Israel is planning on sending Palestinians in Gaza to South Sudan. I drafted a line that had both cleared through the building, and what I mean by that, it was approved through the building by both civil servants and political appointees, and a line that was used by both President Trump and Special Envoy Witkoff in the spring, stating we do not support forced displacement. However, that was cut. So first we had the condolences for Anas, cutting my line that had previously been okay, saying we do not support forced displacement. And then by Tuesday, a senior official at Embassy Jerusalem came into my press guidance to edit my lines that I was going to brief the spokesperson on, and he added a line stating, we commend Speaker Johnson for visiting Judea and Samaria, whereas previously the line that I had used stated that we support stability in the West Bank. It was a more passive line that did not directly respond to the question at hand. But he wanted to use a Judea and Samaria label, and I cut that line. And those 3 events accumulated into an issue by the end of the week, which I found odd and out of place, because my lines were both in line with President Trump's and Special Envoy Witkoff's words, and in line with U.S. interests.
Can you first explain to our viewers, I guess, why that's such a loaded expression, using the term Judea and Samaria for the West Bank?
Sure, it's a religious label. It erases any Palestinian claim to the land. It emphasizes Israeli claim to the West Bank, which is against international law. And the borders of what Judea and Samaria, what that means, is unclear as well. It will aggravate not only the Palestinians and their claim to their land, but also Israel's neighbors.
So there wasn't a diktat per se, but are you saying that there's a definite sense within the department that that is the direction of travel in terms of language used?
Yeah, language could get more extreme there. Our posture is just going to be getting closer and closer to the Israeli line, which is not in the U.S. interest. It's not what the experts at the State Department prefer. And by firing me, there's now a chilling effect where people who have those concerns and want to say something are less likely to do so. And we saw just a couple of days ago the reporting that this is going back to the forced displacement line, that the reason why they cut that is that there are plans to move Palestinians out of Gaza. So these decisions have ramifications, and it was because we're moving in a more radical direction, and I was just sacrificed in that arc.
And what do you read into that?
Well, it reads to me that they are preempting a radical policy decision, and that was proven right yesterday when the news came out that there is a plan to move Palestinians out of Gaza. And so that's why these decisions and the empowerment of radical voices is very concerning to me.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because normally we hear about these things, obviously through leaks or journalism, but normally through the big announcement. But what you're describing is the kind of machinery that sets into play before big policy change. Isn't that basically what we're talking about? These tweaks to wording, these tweaks to press offices and what's allowed to be said. That's the preamble normally for big policy change.
Absolutely. And in the process, they got rid of me for even thinking of having what would be normal standard lines in response to these questions. And now they set a new standard moving forward in a more radical direction. And no one in the future, my successors aren't going to want to get in the way of these policy decisions anymore. Not because they're trying to get in the way of any policy from the administration, but because you have to do these in line. These are words that were in line with President Trump himself. So now there's some pivot happening with influence by certain ideologues that I find very concerning.
When you talk about ideologues driving this agenda, who are you talking about?
So as the reporting has made it clear, I think there's kind of two groupings. I think it's Ambassador Huckabee, his senior advisor David Milstein, who are very in line with the Israeli vision and intention. And then there are folks at the 7th floor, which means around the Secretary's floor, essentially the State Department, who have that more neoconservative view of the world, which is very military first. I think the combination of the two are not exactly in line with President Trump's vision that he had on the campaign of ending endless wars and pursuing peace and stability in the region.
Like, can I ask you, now that you are outside the tent, where are we going with this? Like, where is the Trump administration on, how in step are they with Benjamin Netanyahu's government and, I guess, with the extremist ideologues, some of whom are in his cabinet?
I can't speak to the private conversations that are happening, of course, but on a policy level, we are too in line and we're not protecting U.S. interests. It's not in the U.S. interest to push Palestinians in Gaza out and burn our diplomatic capital there. It's not in the U.S. interest to use terms like Judea and Samaria. So it is very concerning. President Trump, I just read this very recently, so I don't want to get into too much detail, but I was just reading that he had some concerns about the power of certain voices and how he's concerned that the Israelis are moving to a more radical posture, which may hurt them on the international scene. So it's clear now that even President Trump has certain concerns, but what my issue is, what I'm trying to flag is that the personnel around him needs to be in line with that viewpoint, because if people are not enacting that vision that President Trump has, then we have a problem.
What is his vision, though?
Well, again, I can't speak for the president. I can speak to his speeches and what he claimed on the campaign. So that's all that I have. And if he does want peace and he does want stability, and what really stood out to me, which only hit the news cycle very briefly, was his speech in Riyadh, where he talked about the era of nation building and endless war and neoconservatism to be over. But the figures around him are not in line always with that vision. He just 2 weeks later, he was dropping bombs in the region again. So I have concerns over the personnel. I remember during Trump 1, or at the end of Trump 1, people were frustrated of the people he had hired, the Bolton, the Nikki Haley's, the Pompeos. Those people may be gone, but I don't see much of a difference when you put certain people like Ambassador Huckabee and his staff in a position of influence. That's the same thing to me. That is the same figures of continuing war and having this like radical pro-Israel agenda that is not in line with U.S. interests.
If Israel did annex the West Bank, what would the Trump administration do you think? How would it react to that?
Look, I can only hope that President Trump has a red line somewhere. However, based on the personnel in place and based on everything else that's happening in both the West Bank and Gaza, I'm not particularly hopeful that they will stop Israel from doing so, or at least give a passive response and let them do it anyway. So I'm a bit pessimistic about President Trump's, the administration's ability to push back on that, but I hope that the White House proves me wrong and is able to circumvent these figures at the Department of State.